Welcome to the Product Boss Podcast, where we're dedicated to helping product-based business owners turn into revenue-generating, successful, happy product bosses. I'm Jacqueline Snyder.
And I'm Mina Kunlo-Sitep. Together through digital courses, coaching, and masterminds, we've helped over 50,000 students from startup to multi-million-dollar businesses scale their sales while blending in their dream life.
It gets lonely out there in the product business world. We fully believe a business shouldn't be built alone. There's room at the top for all of us.
So let's get scrappy and creative together, Product Boss, to be profitable, make more sales, and grow your visibility.
Are you ready? Let's dive in.
Hey friends, it's podcast recommendation time. One of our absolute favorite podcasts is Online Marketing Made Easy, hosted by the incredible Amy Porterfield.
And I'm so glad to say that we're friends with her. And this is true that we never miss an episode. She has been someone that we've looked up to for so long. And she's been one of our biggest inspirations on our business journey. So we know you are going to love her podcast as much as we do.
Most definitely. Our favorite part about Amy is that she is not only just so inspiring and so relatable, but she also breaks down big ideas and strategies into actionable, doable step-by-step processes to get you results without all that needed stress, which you know that we love.
Yes. And then plus, in one of her most recent episodes, Amy dives into why she shows up online as 100% herself, where she shares her authenticity in the digital world and what you can do to stay true to yourself. Now, she was also on our podcast last month, so make sure to listen to her because she's just released her new book. So Mina and I believe that staying true to yourself is one of your greatest superpowers, and this episode really reinforces that belief.
It's so good. Listen to the Online Marketing Made Easy wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Product Boss Podcast. This is a special one because on with us today, we have Dr. JJ Peterson. He is the host of Marketing Made Simple and the head of Story Brand. We are huge fans. JJ is an expert communicator and a brand strategist. In this episode, you'll actually hear him go through the Story Brand framework. It is so amazing. And I think it will give you such aha moments because we know that you need to sell and you need to sell with your stories and with content that connects with your customers. Jacqueline and I are saying this all the time. And JJ's goal is to drive leaders to eliminate confusion, connect with customers, and to grow your business. And it's a method that has been trusted by more than 10,000 organizations, including Intel, Pantene, and Berkshire Hathaway. So we're so super excited to have him on here to share all those gems of knowledge with you. So let's jump in.
Welcome to the Product Boss Show. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be so fun.
So fun. We're fans of everything that you all do. So would you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Yes, my name is Dr. JJ Peterson, and I am the head of Story Brand. And we really help companies create clear messaging, create clear stories for their products. And the big kind of shift that we do is we teach companies that you're losing money because you are positioning you and your product as the hero of the story. And then in reality, your customer is the hero. And you need to create messaging that does that.
I love
so
it.
Good.
So for all of you that don't know what Story Brand is, it is a Donald Miller book, but really it's an entire movement. You know, there's just been so many. I mean, it's been around for ages at this point. He probably wouldn't say that, right? But it has been.
Well, story, obviously story goes all the way back to like pre-written language, right? So
Yes.
People have been using story and story formulas, all the way back before even Aristotle and Plato, but they were the ones who really started saying, let's start thinking about how to tell story. And so Donald Miller wrote Story Brand. We started Story Brand about 7 years ago, but obviously story has been around forever.
Yeah.
So.
Beginning of time.
Yep.
Right. Kind of based off of the hero's journey, right? Can you go into kind of that and kind of the flip of that and what that means to all of you?
Yeah. So for everybody listening, you probably understand how story works. Like you love stories, you've probably seen a ton of movies, you've read books. And what you may or may not have realized is that story is actually formulaic. Every good story that you've heard actually follows a very simple formula. And if you're writing a screenplay or a novel, there may be like 32 to 36 points that you would literally have to hit. There is a book called Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. And a lot of people think literally this guy ruined Hollywood because he told people how to literally page by page write a movie. And people have been using this formula because he's basing it on like the years and years of understanding of story. But when you really take story and boil it down to its most basic components, there are really 7 elements of every good story. And when I say these kind of quickly, you're going to know, oh yeah, I've seen this in every movie I've seen. And that's why we think now, all movies are kind of the same and we can predict what happens. Well, it's true because they are. And so the 7 elements of story, to have a good story, to make it clear and compelling, that's really the key to this. To make a clear and compelling story has to have the 7 elements. The first element is there has to be a clear character, one kind of obvious or group protagonist, and we have to know very early in the story what that hero wants. And it has to be very clear. It has to be one thing. If Jason Bourne wants to know who he is and his history, but also wants to start a bakery and sell jewelry on Etsy and adopt a cat and train for a marathon, like that's not a good movie, right? Like we're not going to follow that movie. So it needs to be one thing. Then what really makes the story good is that the hero then has to encounter a problem. There is something that gets in the way of the hero getting what they want and being who they want to be. And that is really the hook of the story. The bigger the problem, the more we pay attention to the story. Those really are the 2 most important and clear elements that have to be in a story. Then the rest kind of falls in line with that. So then the third element is that the hero has to meet a guide. The hero can't win the day on their own, can't overcome the problem on their own. So they have to meet a guide. Katniss in Hunger Games meets Haymitch. Luke meets Yoda and Obi-Wan. There's always somebody. Frodo
Eminem met Dr. Dre, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, right?
I didn't know you were going there.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it links up, right? That's why 8 Mile is a movie, right?
It is, because he couldn't solve the problem on his own. And then ultimately, right? Mm-hmm. And so then the guide, the 4th element is the guide gives the hero a plan. There's a clear way forward. You'll hear in movies all the time, what's the plan or here's the plan. It's in almost every story because we have to see that the hero has a clear path forward. Then there's a moment that the hero has to be called to action. So like a bomb is going to go off. There's a ticking time clock that's going to, basically they have to rescue their kidnapped daughter before 24 hours. There's something that forces the hero to act. And then we as the audience know the last 2 pieces, how this can be a happy ending, which we call success, or the hero doesn't destroy the bomb, everybody dies, and that is tragic ending or failure. So those are the 7 elements that have to be present in a story for us to be engaged. Understand there is a character, 1, 2, who has a problem, 3, meets a guide, 4, that gives them a plan, 5, that calls them to action, 6, that can either result in success, or 7, failure. And so that's every story that's out there. And those are what makes a clear and compelling story. It helps our brain can follow that pathway. So what we do at StoryBrand is we actually come in and we help companies develop the talking points for those elements of story. So how do you identify if your customer is the hero of your story? You're not the hero. If your customer is the hero, how do you identify and name clearly what your customer wants? Then how do you articulate the problem they experience that you can solve? Then how do you position yourself as a guide? How do you give them a plan to buy your product that's very clear and shows them it's easy for them to win? What is your call to action? And then how do you cast a vision with imagery and language that shows what their life is like after they use your product or service? That's the success element. or what they're missing out on. It can be FOMO or some kind of problem solved if they don't, which is failure.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So it really goes with what we teach as well, which is bestseller. We talked a little bit about, so everybody go listen to our episode on marketing made simple. And then you're hearing Dr. JJ here in this episode, but it really does overlap because it's much more than your product, right? It's more about connecting the dots for them and seeing your life as it unfolds as the customer. And people tend to buy what they see or buy what they hear, right? And what they're buying is exactly this. It's the story unfolding of what that could look like, either the success or the failure, right? It's like the choice. They get the choice of being, the hero in that story, and making that, whether or not that call to action is going to get them, right? So I love that.
So I have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, you said that a lot of times, and the mistakes that a lot of us make is that we make the story about us, right? We make the story about, I don't know, I'll just use my own story, fashion designer that hated carrying purses. And so I decided that I was going to make Cuffs Couture, which is a wearable wrist wallet, because to meet my needs. And then, or you're making the product, like, look how amazing these cuffs are. Like, these are the things that you need. They're beautiful. They look like bracelets, but that's actually, according to this, the wrong story to tell, right?
Kind of. You actually, I would say, got half of it right.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. Halfway there. Okay.
Yeah. And it's honestly a little bit just nuanced. So when you, in stories, the reason why a guide matters in a story is because they're there to help the hero, right? Like if you think about Hunger Games, Haymitch is the guide, but he's really, if Katniss is doing anything but Hunger Games, Haymitch is just a drunk in town, right? He's just kind of like this jerk, this, nasty guy who's bitter. If she's trying to open a bakery or start a dating service, he doesn't matter in the story. The only reason he matters in the story is because of two things. And this is how you always position yourself as a guide and how a guide shows up in a movie. A guide always has empathy for the hero's problem and has authority to solve the hero's problem. Meaning, Haymitch understands what it was like to be in the Hunger Games, so he feels that. And he's like Katniss, but he also won. He's literally the only person in her life that has the ability to help her win. So when you then are positioning yourself as a guide in your customer's hero journey, those are the two things you're looking to do. You're looking to express empathy and authority. So what you did when you said, I was sick of carrying purses, you're expressing empathy, because like if people love purses, then in reality, you don't matter in their story, right? You're not their guide. You go, great, go get that Gucci bag and spend too much money and get it, and then regret it later. But if like for us, what we're saying is, hey, for those of us who actually struggled with this problem, because you actually literally named a problem of carrying the bags, and you said, I get it. I'm like you. So you started with empathy. And then authority, really, when it comes in a fashion brand, comes in the quality, it comes in the aspirational identity, and it comes in in just like how the product looks, right? So you don't have to say, these are the best bags, these are the best things I've ever seen. What you're just doing is showing, look who's wearing it, right? Like that's authority. Like if you have somebody that's a celebrity wearing it, that's authority. So you don't have to say anything. You're just dropping a little bit of authority in there. Or you give a testimony or a video of somebody wearing it out and about and doing more things. Like that's just authority. So anytime now you're talking about your brand, those are the two things. So you can tell what people, when we say don't tell your story, that doesn't mean don't ever talk about yourself, right? So I'll just give an example for me. When I get up on stage and I am talking to businesses to try to help them with their marketing, I get up and I talk about how I used to work in nonprofit. And I would sit there staring at the screen, trying to figure out how to tell these amazing stories to get more people to make a difference in the world. And I struggled, right? That's it. Then I talk about how ultimately I have a PhD in communication. I've taught communication. I worked in Hollywood, did screenwriting, directed a documentary, and ultimately now teach at Vanderbilt. And I've helped thousands of companies around the world, including Microsoft, da, 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 da. Now, I don't always say all of those things. I'm dropping those things in because those are the parts of my story that matter to that audience. What I don't tell them are things like, I grew up in Kenya. My parents were missionaries in Kenya. I was in a Missy Elliott music video. I was in one episode of The Office. those are my stories, and that makes me the hero of the story. And they may make people think I'm interesting, or they're like they want to connect with me on an individual level. But if I'm going to stand on stage and charge people for my products and services, being in a Missy Elliott video doesn't actually matter. In fact, it distracts from the story. It makes people think like, they're like, now stop listening to me and start looking it up on YouTube. So they actually move away from the story I want them to know. So I have all of these things that I can share, but when I'm getting ready to talk about specifically my product and service, the only pieces that I talk about is empathy. I get you. I understand you. I am you. But I've also helped other people win the day. So that's why you can go with this direction.
So let's take it just a step further, because it's incredible. Obviously, you know that what you teach is incredible. So I figured it out, and I'm like, here's, I'm your guide. That my journey leading to here. How do you take it the next part? Because I think a lot of times for marketing and for physical product-based business owners, they're not sure then how to keep it going. So it's like, someone might say to you, well, how does my candle improve my customer's life, right? They look at their products as arbitrary. I sell mugs. How does this mug improve their life? And so it's hard sometimes to take it past that step of like, other people love these mugs because they like to drink coffee out of them every morning, right? So how would you kind of keep that going?
Yeah. So some of the times that we're going next level here. Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes I don't always talk about this because it is a little nuanced when it gets to this kind of next level. But I think your audience, can handle it, and the nuances apply to your audience specifically. When you are talking about, say, fashion brand in particular, some of those spaces, or candles, or homemade kind of baked goods or something like that are really specific and really niche to the person that's selling them. And some of it is built on their personality, some of that kind of stuff. What you're looking for, especially say in a market that is candles, that feels very saturated. I could go to CVS and get a crappy candle in the glass vase, or I can buy something different. And you want to start thinking about, what is it that would make me want to buy your candle in particular compared to a CVS candle? Because they both bring light and bring smells. So you're kind of saying then, all right, these are more subtle smells, or these are really focused in offering peace. These are more focused in the way the wick works in order to bring about a different sound so you're kind of just, you are finding something that is unique about your perspective, the story you want to tell, and more importantly, and this is the nuance piece, the story you want to invite people into. That's what really this is about, is that, yes, all candles, these days, all candles smell and all candles bring light. Great. But what story do I want to invite my customer into when they use my candle? Is it that I'm inviting them into peace? Am I inviting them into meditation? Am I inviting them into subtle smells? Am I inviting them into into creating a welcoming home? What is it? So I'm not just reflecting back to the customer like, well, they need a candle that smells good. No, I want to actually create a story and invite them in. So that's how you start differentiating in your brand, is first, I would say, listen to your customers. And what is it that they are telling you is different about your brand, and why are they loyal? Is it your story, or is it because they love the smell, it's long lasting, it creates a peaceful environment? And then use those to craft a story so you can connect with other like customers and invite them into that.
Hey, Mina, do you ever wish there was an easier way to keep track of all the things going on in our business than using spreadsheets?
Absolutely. I would love to have an all-in-one platform that keeps track for us rather than having to search through our Google Drive all the time.
Yeah, because we can't find anything in our Google Drive, nor can we really work spreadsheets. So that is exactly what HubSpot offers. With HubSpot CRM, you receive real-time data at your fingertips so your teams stay in sync across the customer journey. You can build better content, generate more conversions, and get the context you need to create amazing experiences for your teams and your customers at scale, all from one powerful platform.
That sounds like a dream.
Yes, it's why more than 150,000 companies already use HubSpot CRM to run their businesses better.
Plus, I've heard that HubSpot's user-friendly interface sets you up for success from day one, so you can spend less time managing software and more time on what matters most, your customers.
100%. So listen, there's no better time to get organized. Get started for free at HubSpot.com today. Hey friends, are you unsure of what to say on social media or what to even send in your weekly emails? Well, what if creating content could be easy? Would you be looking for a shortcut to creating consistent content? Yes, consistent content, because consistency is key. Well, let me tell you, you are not alone when you feel like you're struggling on what to post or what to write in emails. And we know that you have that product part of your business down. But as you're listening to this podcast, you probably already know that to get more people to your products, to buy your products, you need to create great content. Oh, I know, I keep saying content, and that's the dreaded C word. And we can't tell you how many product bosses tell us that they want to create great content for their audience and their customers, but they don't know what to say, or they are so busy they can't find the time, or they really, really, really don't want to be the face of their brand. Well, no worries, because that's exactly why we created a year of content. It is your shortcut to creating consistent content that resonates with your audience and brings more loyal customers who can't wait to buy your products. If you want to see how easy this is and how easy it is to create content for your audience and your customers, head to www.ayearofcontent.com.
So good. It's finding your voice in that story, right? Because you're inviting them in, and there's lots of candle brands that are like humorous, for example, or they, even in the visuals of it, they look and feel a different way than a different candle does. And, it's hitting that, I love that the way that you put that, you're inviting them into that particular story, because odds are they aren't going to just buy one candle forever. They're going to buy lots of different candles, right? And so it's like one customer can really love this story and that story and, bits and pieces of these stories. And you just get to share whatever it is and invite them in, and they can choose whether or not that story is the one that they essentially want to buy, right?
Yeah. And then I would say, so that's kind of, I would say the story, the narrative piece of it. But really what creating a story is mostly about is about clarity. It's about actually focusing thoughts and focusing direction and kind of leading a customer down a path. So that's why I'm talking, when I said, when you name what your customer wants in the beginning and the problem that they're experiencing, that really starts out the story, right? So if you're naming, like, you want a peaceful home, you want an inviting home, you want to relax at the end of the day, you want candles that don't burn out, you're kind of just naming that in the beginning. And then you kind of, you tap on, in this context, you really just tap on the problem. You don't go, well, all other candles are stupid. You're not like kind of going into that. You kind of just recognize that. So what problem does that solve? In a world that's kind of insane, you want your home to be a sanctuary, and this candle helps us become that, right? So those two pieces really launch the story. So if you can get those two right, that's really, and when I say right, there are 500 rights. That's what I think the other mistake people make is they go, if I don't get the exact words at the exact time, then my brand is going to blow up and it's going to fall apart and I'm going to be a failure. No. Because what this is about is inviting customers into the story. You get to choose what story you're inviting them into. There is no right or wrong. There's sometimes maybe a little bit better. The wrongness, I would say, comes in the lack of clarity. If you're trying to be everything to everybody, that's when it gets confusing. That's the only way you do this wrong. But if you want to say that my candle is about creating a sanctuary in your home, or it's about peace, or it's about welcoming, or it's about humor, that's your choice. You get to invite them into that. The rest then becomes about the clarity piece, how to make things really clear. And that's how position yourself as a guide with empathy and authority. The next piece of the plan piece, what you need to show people is honestly how easy it is to buy your product. That's it. That's what your plan is as a brand, is to say something like, pick the candle, pick your shipping date and enjoy it in your home. That's it. You're just kind of like showing them very simply there is a path forward. It seems like that should be obvious, but for most people, it's not. If you show them the steps they're supposed to take, they will follow. They will go where you tell them to go. And then the second piece, especially with small businesses in particular that I work with, the next piece, the call to action piece, is really important. 70% of small businesses in America do not have a strong call to action on their website. 70%. That means that you do not have a clear shop now, buy now, schedule a call, pick your dates, like call on your. Now, a lot of people who have like the physical stores and things like that, they know this, but here's one thing just to be aware of. When I say strong call to actions, what I don't mean is learn more, call for questions, find out more, anything like that. Those are actually weak calls to action. Strong calls to action actually call people to move. Like they say, buy now, shop now, schedule an appointment, something in that space. And the reason why that's important is because learn more does not force us to be in or out, right? Like think about in a movie, there almost always is like a bomb that's going to go off or a timer that's going to go off because the hero has to be like in or out. There's no like, well, what am I supposed to do to win the day? Nope. It's very clear. Disarm the bomb. Now, how to do that may be a little tricky, but disarm the bomb. If we don't give that definitive action in a movie, then the hero doesn't have to act because ultimately they can delay the action. And we know as human beings that delayed action often means inaction. So for your customers, when you're on the phone with them or when you have something on your website, you want to give them something that says be in or out. Buy now, shop now, schedule a call. Because if you just go learn more, then they go, well, that's something I can do later. And they won't buy. Engagement will go up when you have a strong call to action. And then just to kind of finish, Jacqueline, you're like the last two pieces of how do you play this out. So success and failure, all that really looks like in the most simple way, success is smiley, happy people using your product or service. That's it. Like show people what life is like. Now you can describe like, save time, save money, be healthy, like all of the things that like you can say, what is their life like after they use the product? But that's really all success is. Smiley, happy people using your product, images or words that describe what that's like. And it's just like one or two sentences or bullet points. Failure is just saying something like, don't miss out or stop feeling this way or stop. Like basically you're speaking back to the problem and going, how do I address that if they don't buy this, they're going to continue to experience this problem? So even for your brand, if all you wanted to do was say, stop having to buy new purses every 2 months or something like that, or stop losing your wallet or stop being held back. That's it. You don't need like a ton of failure. Like, oh my gosh, your life is going to be over if you don't buy this bag. Especially for fashion brands and personal brands, you don't need to go heavy in the failure. You just need a little bit.
Yeah. And that call to action, I just want to repeat that for everybody because we've audited and looked at a ton of websites and e-commerce stores or Mina and I walk around markets all the time, trade shows, farmers markets, craft fairs. I can't tell you how many times we walk in and nobody's talking to us. They're not telling us what to do. They're not telling us customers' favorites or best sellers. They're not making an offer. They're not having like that clear call to action, right? And also websites, anyone with a hero image, the main thing, they have like, spring collection out. but it doesn't say shop now. There's no big old button that says
and
shop
it doesn't
now.
even say like shop jewelry, shop labels, right? You can get really succinct in that, but instead it's like click here for,
Might
spring
not even say
collection.
click.
Yeah. They're not even saying click.
It just has like an image, and they assume that people think that you can click on an image. And we always say people want you to tell them what to buy. They need you to ask them to buy from you. They need you to connect the dots and like say, people love these. And so, that's been such a light bulb for our students in our community, because they are like, oh, wait, people want me to tell them what to buy? Yes. When we go to a new restaurant, you might ask the waiter, well, what do you recommend? What's the best thing? And most of the time, unless it's so off of your diet or so off of whatever, you're probably going to pick the thing that the waiter says versus then like, no, I'm not going to take your recommendation. I'm going to go back to the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And, like I do this exercise sometimes when we do big live workshops where we bring in hundreds and hundreds of companies, take them through this process over 2 days with our coaches. Our coaches kind of work with them and help them to clarify their message. And I'll do this. There'll be like 200 people in the room. And I'll say, all right, what I want everybody to do is raise your right hand. And everybody raise their right hand. And then I go, all right, take your left hand and pat your head. And they all start patting their head. And then I go, now wave at me with your right hand. And they wave at me. And I go, here's the thing I want you to remember. People will do what you tell them to do. And then they all just like, kind of start cracking up.
So true.
And literally, I could say anything in that moment when I have them, right? Now, granted, I'm on stage, I'm teaching them. So, I could say, stand up, turn around, face the back wall. They all do it. Well, when somebody is on your website or in your store, like at a market, at a craft market, you have them. You are there to lead them in that. Now, that doesn't mean we're pushy. It doesn't mean we're aggressive. It doesn't mean we manipulate. It does mean if they've stopped by your store or your storefront online, they're interested. They actually want your product. That's what I think people in marketing and sales have to remember. If people are coming to our website, they actually do want to buy. Like they are coming there because something has intrigued them about your product or service, and they want to buy it. And you actually, in many ways, are just giving them permission. You're making it clear and easy for them to buy. So even like what you're saying, if people who are listening, if every entrepreneur who's listening, if you're at a farmer's market or you are at a craft show, you want to actually develop a phrase that you memorize and repeat over and over that gives people permission to say yes. Now, and what I mean by that is if they're really loving that necklace they have in their hands, you want to say to them, would you like me to wrap that up for you? Don't sit back. Don't sit back and go like, well, I'll be here all day. No, they're not coming back. They're going down the row and they'll find something else. And they have the ability, they're not children. They have the ability to say, no, you're not being a jerk. You're not being pushy in this. What you're doing is you're giving them permission to do what they actually do want to do. Right. So by finding that phrase, if you're at your booth and you can think of a phrase that you can say or teach any of your employees to say, that is like, can I wrap that up for you? Can we ship? How many boxes would you like me to ship? Things like that just give them permission to say yes. Or would you like 2 boxes or 3? I mean, just give them that phrase. And I will just be honest, that feels awkward for us. It doesn't feel normal. Because it feels like we're being pushy. You're not. I promise you, you're not. And I promise you it will be more effective. So that's why I say memorize it, learn it, memorize it, have the discipline to use it. And I know your sales will go up.
I love it.
I was listening to that and I was like, well, yes, wrap it up for me. Like, I don't actually know what you're selling, but send me 3 boxes. Yes. I'm sure our listeners do too, because it's like, yes, especially that was gold, like such gold for all of you out there. I hope you heard that it's like, they just need the permission to buy. Because when we pick something up, all the other stuff in our head that's like, it's too expensive. Do I need this? Do I need another one of these? Oh, what's my husband going to say? What is it that's going through people's heads? And then by you offering them that ease of saying like, would you like me to wrap that up for you? They're like, actually, I do want you to wrap that up for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I can add to that phrase too. So I don't know if you read, I forget what his name is, but Robert, what's his name that he's 7 influences? Gosh, I forget what book it is, but there's certain words, because, and so, and things like that. So for example, can I cut in line because I'm running late? Will
Oh, yes,
actually
yes.
make people say yes more than can I cut in line? Right. So for in this case, can I wrap that up for you so you don't have to come back around? Will get you a yes more than can I wrap that up for you? So you just take another step. Once you get that, it's like, ooh, that is just, I love it. Such gold.
Yeah. And that's what people want that. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about, clarity and story. People are wanting to do that. They are wanting to win. And I know that sometimes it feels like, well, that feels grandiose to say about a candle or something, but it's not. The reality is the joy. I have a candle that is on my TV stand that brings me so much joy, honestly. And every time my partner walks in the door, he's like, yes, I thank you for lighting that candle. Literally said that last night. Thank you for lighting the candle. And it brings me so much joy. And it's a small thing. It wasn't that expensive. I mean, maybe expensive as far as candles go, but I'm willing to spend that because it's more than just a light and a smell. It brings something to my life. And I appreciate that. And I, of all people, am a lover of good food. I mean, give me a good blonde brownie and we're best friends for life. I mean, that's just how it is, like, and so that I can get joy, I can get teary over apple butter. And so, like it's a real
Like
thing.
my
for
husband
me.
over beef cheeks. He literally
Yeah.
cried over a meal once. It's like, you are embarrassing me in this really nice restaurant.
I have
No,
zero
food
shame.
is my love language. Like that's literally, it's so funny because I thought, and just to go back to the hero really is the other people you're trying to connect with. So food is my love language. So I thought for Lunar New Year, food is my love language. I'm going to get this really fancy charcuterie board to put on the table for Lunar New Year. And I get there and my family, and they're like, what's this? So the hero in the story was not them. I wasn't thinking about them. I was literally only thinking about me. I ate that whole entire fancy charcuterie board and to myself, so really come back to, the hero in the story is the person that you want to take action. I wanted my family to love that charcuterie board for New Year, but really, they didn't.
Yeah. So this is kind of interesting. I'm
Yeah.
in my own personal world. Here's how you get the win-win, right? So we'll see if this applies to everybody we're talking to, but I can talk about cheese all day. Is that my family asked me to put together a charcuterie board for Christmas, but I know that stretching them in that space is not going to work, right? So I actually had to buy my dad Ritz crackers and the actual like
Summer
cheddar
sausage.
cheese, and summer sauce, like cheddar cheese blocks and summer sausage. That was him. And then everybody else, I got to do everything else for, and for myself, and I got to stretch them. And it is really like the reason I guess I do bring that up is because I think for a lot of people, they think, well, people want me to change my product or change everything about it in the way, in order to reach a broader audience. No. You just need to change a little bit of the way maybe you're talking about it, the way that you approach it. And in those moments when you find that people are connecting with a specific piece of your product or specific words that you're using to describe your product, amplify those. Amplify that piece of the message, because that's what's going to connect with them. And going back to the earlier discussion, I'll bring up, I worked with a brand that I don't want to say their name. So I worked with a brand that made breakfast bars. Okay. And it was started by the person who created it out of, they were 13 years old and they hated breakfast bars because they didn't taste good and they didn't have a lot of energy. So 13, she created a breakfast bar. And then it started to blow up and Al Gore got involved and some different things happened. And because of some Hurricane Katrina, people could probably figure who out this person is after this. But by the time then she was an adult and trying to expand to a different world, and Hurricane Katrina, people weren't talking about it as much anymore. The story she had been telling for 15 years that got her to a certain level no longer worked. Because when you're 13 and people are like, oh my gosh, I don't care what the bar tastes like, I'm going to buy this bar to support this 13-year-old entrepreneur. And the fact that she had gotten out of Katrina, like, I'm going to support this person who went through tragedy. Well, then when the brand was built around that story, and that story no longer resonated when she was an adult, It did with some people, but not everybody. She had to figure out how to switch her brand message off of her story and onto the bar, and how the bar actually helped people who wanted something good to eat in the morning, but also didn't want a ton of sugar and wanted to be able to have energy throughout the day, on the go kind of stuff. And so we did not change the product. We did not really change the branding. We changed some of the messaging on the box. That was about it, because the messaging on the box was primarily her story. We still kept her story in there a little bit. We led with the empathy. I was 13. I wouldn't eat what my mom was giving me for breakfast, da 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 da. And then we went right into, which is why I created this for you. So when you are on the go, when you have picky eaters who are kids, when you are looking for something that can sustain you throughout the day, now it's all about the customer. So small shift, same product, same exact branding, just a little bit of shift in the message. And then she's now able to, you can find her bars in grocery stores all across America.
Amazing.
So great.
Well, thank you so much for everything you've given here and going next level and, more specific with us. Would you mind telling our community, our listeners, how they can connect with you, how they can learn more from StoryBrand and all the things?
Yeah. So if some of this is resonating with you specifically and you're trying to think through, like, how do I create a clear message or a clear story? We actually have an online tool called a brand script. And basically what it is it is a tool that helps you create all the talking points for the 7 elements that I've been talking about today. So there's literally like boxes where you can identify what is it that your customer wants? What is the problem? How do I position myself as a guide? What's the plan? All of those things. And so you can kind of go and play with it and experiment with it. And that's at storybrand.com/brand script, one word, brand script. So storybrand.com/brand script. And you just kind of go on there and play with it a little bit, start putting in the language and developing your clear story that positions your customers the hero and you as the guide.
Amazing.
So great. Thank you so much for being on. And we'll have everything under in the show notes. And so check it out, everybody. And thank you again, Dr. JJ, for being on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here and listening all the way through the Product Boss podcast. If you love our show and it has helped you in any way in your business, would you mind doing 2 things for us? Subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode and leave us a review. Reviews help other product entrepreneurs know that this is the place to be to grow their businesses and realize that they're not alone. And we know that you all know that a 5-star and honest review helps you sell more products to more people. So you know that your reviews help us reach more listeners around the world. Remember, what we give is what we receive, and we are all about helping each other in the Product Boss community. We are all in this together. We would be so appreciative of you if you could take the time right now to subscribe, leave a review, and even share this episode on social or someone you know so we can impact more lives. And remember, subscribing means that you will get notified each time we release a new episode so you never miss a thing. You have helped us grow and climb into the top 10 of all marketing podcasts, and together we can keep climbing. Thank you, friends. And remember, there is room at the top for all of us.